Yeah, we're solid quorum.
Okay. So, good morning, everyone. I want to welcome all of you to our executive committee meeting for the state board. We have a quorum. I'm going to go over our meeting process notes today. This meeting is being conducted on Zoom. Only executive members and staff. Only executive members and staff are on the Zoom meeting. The public can view this meeting via live stream on our YouTube page, California Workforce Development Board. A link to that page, the meeting agenda, and board packet information can all be found on the CWDB website, cwdb.ca.gov under State Board Meetings and Archives. The recording of this meeting is going to stay on our YouTube page. Public comment is now open and will be accepted via email at boardpubliccomment@cwdb.ca.gov, and I can acknowledge that when we receive them at the appropriate time. All emails will be read aloud during the public comment periods noted on the agenda and is going to be included in our meeting minutes as part of the public record. So we can allow for up to 3 minutes for each comment, so please try to be concise. Board members, I respectfully ask if you can remain on mute, and I'm happy to recognize you when you need to speak. You can use either the raise hand feature or you can use the chat function to request to speak. You can also type questions into the chat and we can try to get to those as well. Just please note that anything typed into the Zoom chat box is included in the meeting minutes as part of the public record. So we'll start with our action item agenda, which is consideration of approval of the February 2nd, 2022 meeting, which you can find on page 4 of your agenda packet. So happy to entertain any questions or comments before we take a motion. Okay, we'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve, Jamil.
Motion by Jamil.
Second.
Second by Nancy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, is there anybody abstaining or voting? No. Okay, motion carries. We'll now get to the labor agency updates. In June and July, the governor signed our 2022 budget bill and related legislation to implement a $307 billion total state budget. Abby Snay and Tim will update us on how it relates to workforce. And Abby's also going to talk about a draft plan for workforce system change. Do you want to start off with Abby?
Let's start with Abby. Hi, Abby.
Abby, are you ready?
Hi, you know what? I'm just kind of logging on. I can be ready. So just at a really high level, we were very pleased with the workforce investments in this year's state budget. In terms of, having said that, there are some pieces that were larger in the January budget proposal and the May revise that were cut back, just in all the last minute negotiations. But a few of the high points I can talk about are that within the healthcare workforce, where we landed was $135 million that goes to CWDB for high road training partnerships in healthcare, which should really be transformative. 25 million going to the employment training panel for training in those healthcare institutions who otherwise would not be eligible for ETP funding, and then 60 million to replicate the very successful Alameda County Emergency Medical Technician Program in hopefully 10 counties around the state. Kind of looking at the climate side, there is $40 million going through EDD to create the Oil and Gas Worker Displacement Fund for support services for retraining for those workers in the oil and gas industry who have lost jobs or are likely to lose their jobs as the state transitions to a carbon neutral economy. I think as a companion piece to that, and Tim, please jump in with more detail, the state will be investing around $200 million to cap existing oil wells, and $20 million is going through the state board to train workers to do that oil well capping. On the immigrant integration and economic mobility side, we landed with $20 million going through EDD's Workforce Services branch to build out integrated education and training as a training methodology to accelerate kind of skills development for English language learners, and then $10 million to ETP for workplace literacy. The $20 million through for IET, the acronym, will also be paired with $130 million of Prop 9, and the $20 million is general fund dollars. There will be $130 million of Prop 98 dollars that is going into the adult ed system for accelerated training for English language learners in healthcare occupations. So these will all be closely coordinated. On the apprenticeship side, the Apprenticeship Innovation Fund that was introduced in the May revise was approved at $175 million, and just at a kind of a top level, creates a source of hopefully ongoing sustainable funding for apprenticeship intermediaries on the non-traditional apprenticeship side. Some of the areas of growth in hopefully in healthcare, in business services, in the non-construction side, and $65 million that came from the legislature for youth apprenticeship. On that one, really the planning is just starting. Division of Apprenticeship Standards will set up an advisory committee. The focus of that fund is really getting opportunity youth into existing apprenticeship programs. So that is really exciting. DIR is also getting really on an ongoing basis $20 million a year to increase the participation of women in construction jobs. They have a solicitation out or about ready to go out for the initial tranche of funding, which was $15 million in last year's budget, to both for outreach for women, but also to provide childcare subsidies for women in pre-apprenticeship programs. And then we'll test and see how effective that is in increasing participation and retention of women in pre-apprenticeship programs. Tim, do you want to talk about the $110 million for the goods movement workforce campus and some of the pass-throughs through CWDB? You're just much closer to those than I am. And then I'm happy to pause and answer any questions.
Is that up on the screen for folks to see?
Yes.
So it's not a very pretty visual, but I thought it'd be helpful because there's so many things to go over. I lost connection for a little bit, Abby, so I think I missed a couple of things that you covered. But on the port worker training facility, folks can see it there at the middle of that list. It was $439 million total allocated to the state workforce board to invest in high road training programs, high road training coaches. And in the middle of the document, there you see the port worker training facility, $110 million invested at the ports of Long Beach and LA for a new goods movement training center or port worker training center. The purpose broadly is around all things related to goods movement, not just in Los Angeles, not just the ports, but really across the entire Southern California supply chain from the port to the Inland Empire. That's sort of big picture stuff. That's the intent behind it. But specifically, the training center is really built for longshore workers at the port to increase skills, to improve skills, but also to bring new people into the workforce at the ports, the twin ports. These are really incredibly good paying jobs. But I think as a lot of folks know, moving toward mitigating climate change, there's a lot of movement, no pun intended, at the ports toward lower emissions, equipment, plug-in technology, other things, but also just the need to move toward different uses of technology at the port. Some of that will be automation. It's already happened at the Port of Los Angeles and the Port of Long Beach. So the focus here is retraining, reskilling, and upskilling the current workforce there. I'll go back to the top. You can see Abby mentioned through the State Workforce Board, there's $135 million for healthcare, high road training partnerships. Abby mentioned the well capping pilot. I have on there in blue, also what Abby mentioned, the $200 million in state and federal money that'll go to capping orphan oil wells across the state. The pilot is creating training infrastructure capacity to move people into that work of capping. It's very high skilled, it's very high paying, and we'll do a lot of this in cooperation with the operating engineers and the laborers and other unions, and an access point for workers who are displaced or risk of being displaced by climate or new technologies or new policy will be through our high road construction careers programs. And we'll align that with the work that Nancy's team is doing on that displaced oil and gas worker pilot, that $40 million that Abby also pointed out. We've got additional money for low carbon workforce, which is building on our previous work around low carbon economy workforce grant program. That's going into high road training partnerships and high road construction careers. There's an additional $17 million focused on extreme heat, also going through high road construction careers. There's a reentry fund, $2.5 million, that's going to build on our prison to employment program, a little bit different program work in collaboration with the Center for Employment Opportunities and the Anti-Recidivism Coalition, really connected to HRCC and access to really good jobs in the trades, something we're already doing, so it'll build on existing work. And then I think you mentioned this, Abby, but you might have cut out the California Youth Leadership Program, Justice Pathway, $60 million over 3 years. Really brilliant work that started with investments from the state leadership, from the Labor and Workforce Development Agency, Abby in particular, building really amazing partnership with the community colleges to help young people go to work in and around justice related to immigrants and removing barriers to employment for immigrants. It's really beautiful work. There's a whole list of direct contracts. These are dollars that come in the budget to the state board. We had a number of these last budget as well. We call them direct contracts because the entity is named in the budget, and then we can actually do a sole source contract with those entities and move funding directly to them. So you see that list there. At the top of it is the Hospitality Training Academy, $20 million to acquire a new building in Los Angeles. HTA is, I think most of you know, is one of our flagship high road training partnerships. Beautiful work, and there's a list of well-known organizations across the state doing very good work. And I think I'll leave it there.
So we have a question from John Brower.
Thanks, guys. Abby, I understood that apprenticeship fund, it's not necessarily intermediary organizations per se, but that you had to have a registered apprentice program to be eligible to receive those monies. Is that correct?
Yes. Sorry if that wasn't clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. And then the piece that I didn't mention, but I think we've talked before in this context, is the increased reimbursement amount for RSI to keep that on a par with the 4-credit reimbursement that the colleges get, which I think is a really profound change and a very important statement that apprenticeship instruction is on a par with the for-credit instruction.
Right. But just, it's not the same as, say, what CAI has been funding over the last 4 or 5 years. It's additional RSI and support once you've actually got something registered with DA.
Right, it's just changing the rate,
Great.
increasing the rate. Yeah.
Great.
Carol Zabin.
Yeah, I had 2 questions. The first is, and I want to thank Abby and Tim for the help of this, but we've had trouble with our Contra Costa refinery project in terms of the delays in the money disbursement. And I know you guys have been helping with that. I just wondered, if are other HRTPs experiencing the same thing? Are we unique? And is there any systemic progress on that? And the second one is, I just saw the EDA announcements for what Good Job something or other, their grant awards. There were 2 in California. I wonder if you guys have any involvement in either one. Looks like Fresno works, and the other one is the forestry through the community colleges, and that does seem like a good place to kind of push high road, because right now a lot of the problem is in the contracting. There's no language to ensure there's good jobs, and so if there's, we all agree we can't train for bad jobs. So just those 2 questions.
Yeah, I'll try both of them, and Abby, maybe you could chime in. So on the first question, Carol, you are unique, but not in that sense. We have the same challenge with all of our high road training partnerships. There's a gap in funding for all of them. And the way we structured approaching the grant making this time was to do the letter of intent. I'm not sure we're calling it that anymore. And then we'd approve those. We sort of cull down to the top scores there and then invite folks to apply. That added a little time to the process, but there would have been a gap and a lag anyway, because this is new money and it's new contracts, and we've got to go through that whole process of new contracts. We can't amend existing high road training partnership contracts. I found out, and I haven't talked to Abby about this yet. We've been working on this internally because that again requires a new contract process. And if I went through that to get some gap funding to any of the programs, the time it would take to get the funding to them would be pretty close to what it's going to take to get the new grants done. So there was, unfortunately, I wish I could say there was a way to get gap funding. We may look at other options, and Abby and I will talk about this more. There are foundations that are interested in funding. That may be one possibility, and there might be others. So I regret that we've got this gap problem, but the way we've structured it this time creates more of a it's going to allow us to get money out a lot faster, because we're on a kind of a rolling grant process now where proposals can keep coming in, and as long as we have money in that bucket of funds, we can allocate funds to projects that meet our requirements and are qualified for the funding. So that's going to improve dramatically our ability to push money out in the field. We're now getting our sea legs around how to manage large amounts of grant funding and be a good grant making organization, kind of pivoting a little bit from just being a policy organization. But this year is difficult. On the second one, we did with labor agency work and EDD on the Good Jobs Challenge. I think that's what you're talking about, right, Carol, with the EDA funds. We encourage organizations to apply. We actually went through a process of looking at what organizations were applying for those dollars, and we approved a number of those that met our standards for high road work. At least got close enough to our standards for high road work projects that we can work with to kind of get them there. So our intention is to go back to those entities that got funded and continue that guidance and collaboration. Did I answer, Abby?
Well, so are you saying there is no solution for the Contra Costa project?
There may be, but it's not going to be the solution that I hoped, which was the state board would find gap funding. We've got to look at some other things. So we can talk with you offline on that.
Yeah,
Abby.
Carol, I have a couple of thoughts about some foundation support for the gap.
Well,
I
it's
think we
not
could,
a gap, it's more that, if the contract could just be extended, then,
there wouldn't be a gap, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
it's not actually okay, but yeah, so the answer, I just need to tell him, because they're not going to apply for the next round. There's no point in them applying for the next round, unfortunately. So one less good project in your bucket, unfortunately.
Well, we like that project a lot because it's East Bay and it's oil refineries and it's oil workers, it's oil and gas workers. So we should keep talking about what we can do.
Yeah, but the deadline is August 10th and Josh isn't going to be able to apply, but let's talk
That's
offline.
fine. It's on a rolling basis now, Carol. So there's another bite at the apple, so we can talk.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing that up, Carol. Abby, do you want to speak a little bit about the draft plan for the workforce system change?
Yes, but I just want to check in on timing, because I do have a few slides I can talk through, but don't want to delay.
No, go ahead, please proceed.
Okay, I'm going to share a screen then. Can you see that?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so I have to move this little thing over and get into a slideshow here. Yeah, so just as a little kind of orientation, when we think about, from the agency level, the workforce priorities writ large for the current fiscal year, we're really thinking about three big buckets that, of course, all intersect. Our sector strategies, we've talked about healthcare. Another priority is, figuring out ways to intervene in the care economy to improve the wages and quality of those jobs, as well as to build out and build upon some of the great work already happening that is supported through HRTP on care jobs, doing that in partnership with the Health and Human Services Agency. Work to really articulate what a climate workforce strategy is. And of course, acknowledging that there are not climate jobs per se, but really working to support and coordinate closely with the other state agencies and departments to kind of identify those jobs that might be going away, where we want to respond to the needs of dislocated workers, to identify opportunities for new training and in jobs that will be emerging, and to work on procurement. And Tim and Shreyas have been so brilliant in this to make sure that the contracts that go out for some of these new technologies really are creating good jobs. Our colleague Sebastian Sanchez has been doing some exciting research to develop what an agriculture workforce strategy could look like, that is likely to look at growth opportunities for farm workers, building some basic skills among farm workers, and looking at adjacent industries where there could be some career pathway opportunities. And then there's a lot that's that is taking place around infrastructure, transportation, I think both on the procurement side, as well as the training and apprenticeship opportunities that will happen as the federal infrastructure dollars come down, as well as the state emphasis, continuing. And, again, these all really intersect, an equity focus on target populations, those groups who have not had access to good training opportunities and good jobs historically, to not only increase access, but to improve outcomes for them, which also gets to systems change in the workforce system. So I'm not going to go through all of these because I do want to be respectful of time, but the driving vision and principles from the agency level, our equity, job quality, an integrated strategy across all the departments, and, building our partnerships with other state agencies and departments. Talked about healthcare, the different sector work. I'm just gonna kind of zip through this pretty quickly. In terms of systems change, I think the three big buckets at the agency level are ways that we can improve the outcomes and access in the public workforce system, broadly defined, building out performance evaluation. And, I think as Tim and I have both been mentioning, really being able to kind of develop and push job quality and equity levers through state procurement. On the public workforce systems, this framework really comes from the AJCC evaluation that the CWDB has engaged, is just wrapping up and getting ready to distribute, I believe, and really looking at kind of three big buckets of work. And I'll just keep it at this level because this is very much a work in progress where CWDB plays a major role, as does Workforce Services Branch. But, looking at the three buckets of enhancing equity, improving data and systems, and expanding training, all in partnership with the local boards and the other local workforce system partners, including EDD's Workforce Services Branch. But, looking at equity in terms of expanding access for immigrants, working to reform the RACIA program, which is really part of unemployment insurance, as it could be so much more effective in terms of outreach, in terms of service delivery, all with the goal of catching people who are on unemployment and preventing them from becoming long-term unemployed, and making sure that we are targeting our investments and aligning our investments towards those people with the highest barriers to employment, and kind of integrating and aligning funding across systems and departments. So much work to be done in terms of data and systems, creating a new shared system for tracking and outcomes measurement, disaggregating outcomes so that we can have a much better understanding around equity issues. We've been looking, for example, at gender equity, and seeing that although women throughout the workforce system, and this comes from Cal Jobs analysis, are referred to training in equal numbers as men, they tend to be referred to lower wage occupations than men do in the system. And so their earnings are considerably lower. So much more to dig into there. We want to look at some statistical adjustments to remove disincentives at the local level for serving people with the highest barriers, and ideally look at what we could do as an administration to get more information on job quality and wage progression. And then expanding training. We know all the evaluations that we do, we know that the more people are in training, the better their employment outcomes are and the better their wages are. And so want to look at where some disincentives may be in the system to invest in training, and figuring out better ways of removing those. And as part of this, again, just much of a work in progress, but a piece of this, and I'll just stop the screen share, just want to be informal, is to, we're kind of tossing around the idea of creating an innovation group, or really a cohort of those workforce boards who are committed to innovation, excited about being part of systems change, and doing some kind of design thinking and planning together. So that would be a component of some of these other elements, which really lays out a workforce systems strategy agenda for the year that will not accomplish everything we want to do, but bites off a chunk of work with some identifiable, measurable outcomes to which we can hold ourselves accountable a year from now. So, Tim, anything you want to add to that overview?
No, that was great, Abby. Thanks. I wonder if there are any questions or comments on that.
Yeah, thank you, Abby. Any comments or questions? Carol, is your hand up from the prior?
No,
Okay, you're also,
I'll get
No.
off.
okay, you're also unmuted, in addition to the hand raised.
Oh, Steve's got his hand up.
Steve,
And
or
Diane.
Dan.
Sure. I don't hear a lot of attention to what the economy needs as opposed to what people with high barriers need. I know it's in there somewhere. I didn't hear a lot about the construction industry or ports or trucking, but in general, as an economist, equity is important, but what the economy needs to go forward is also important. And as I said, I'm sure it's in there somewhere, but I didn't hear it in Abby's go through. I heard concern for equity and people with barriers, but not what businesses need.
Yeah, I think that's a good call, Steve, and probably implicit in all of my thinking, probably our shared thinking about how we do this work is both responding to industry need and doing what we can do to shape the quality of jobs and being selective about the kinds of training for which we're for the kinds of jobs for which we are preparing people. And having said all that, as you know, this is a totally decentralized system, and so much of this work is driven at the local level. I think some of the systems change work is trying to kind of hold the state and local work in better alignment. Right?
So
Yeah,
just as a quick FYI,
Mm-hmm.
I made this point at the NOVA board where I've been a member for 20 years. And next month, I've been asked to do an expanded version of that because I know everybody's heart is with people who are in real distress. But I do want to speak up as an economist for the industries that need workers, whether they're people with high barriers or just anybody who can help those industries.
Yeah, I agree. I think, Steve, I thought Abby said it really well. I would just add, this is how we think about the high road and where equity and quality jobs come together. And the whole high road approach is working in industry sectors, inside industry sectors, and helping companies do different creative things around recruitment and hiring and training and retention. And the workforce system doing something unique and different where it's not just pushing people out into labor markets to compete with each other, but tying our programs to pathways that go directly to industry sectors. So our approach is very demand side oriented, the high road one, with a focus on quality jobs, equity, and of course, climate resiliency. So, but we're pushing an initiative that has some program work tied to it. But as Abby said, it's a very dispersed system, and it's also, quite big. So I think we're making progress on moving the system. And I like the way Abby laid out the system change work, because that's part and parcel of everything else we're trying to do. If that makes any sense. It does in my head. It doesn't always make sense when I say it.
Thanks. Have we taken a position on the AB5 as it relates to truckers? That's way over my head, but I know it's a big potential workforce economy issue.
Well, I heard, Abby, maybe you could speak to this, but I heard the labor secretary say that companies need to comply with the law. And the state of California will make sure that compliance is happening.
Yeah, I mean, nothing really to add there. AB5 is the law.
Thank you for your questions, Steve. And the demand side is, from the economy standpoint, it's the foundation of our the congressional law as well. So thank you for bringing that up. Diane?
Yeah, hi, everyone. A little bit echoing what Steve said. I know Tim and others talk about demand side, but I didn't see it in the AJCC evaluation. And my experience of working a lot with the AJCCs in Los Angeles County is that there is a high number of people seeking work who come from the targeted populations to enhance equity. You know, that we don't have a problem with that. The problem is that the AJC links them to bad jobs, and just bluntly. And I know we have the High Road Training Initiative on another track, but I would really like to push that agenda in the AJCC world. And maybe you're doing that, but it wasn't reflected in the slide. Or if you're not able to do that yet, if that's an aspiration, but you haven't got there yet. But I mean, I've seen lots of people of these kind of high barrier targeted populations in the AJC system being tracked into bad jobs. And that's the problem. Not that we're not reaching them, but that we're not doing a good job in putting them not only with what the economy needs, but like you say, the quality jobs piece is kind of missing from this presentation.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely in there. We've had a lot of discussion about this is probably the main point. Not probably, it is the main point of the system change conversation, because most of the WIOA dollars, as you know, are invested in the infrastructure of 200 or so AJCCs around the state. So our push is better understanding how they're structured, but also what the outcomes are for the WIOA funds, understanding that it's going through AJCCs and the work of the AJCCs and how it's oriented. So using that data is helping us understand where the levers are that we can use, policy levers, but also funding and other things to move that system. A lot of workforce boards around the state are doing terrific work, both in their AJCs in terms of access and client services and being very customer oriented. But you're right, the way they're structured, we're pushing people out in labor markets to compete for too few good jobs. And there's it's not solving the problem, it may be even contributing to it. Workforce boards are doing terrific work with other monies, not their federal monies, we've found. And what we're trying to do is make the WIOA funds link with the cool stuff that local workforce boards are doing, the stuff that they honestly want to talk about the most. And that's a big part of why we've decided to go this route of investing more and more in the program work around High Road, is to help demonstrate what can be done and create an attractor for workforce boards. But that is really our intention, is to connect the WIOA services that are provided through AJCs around the state to that High Road work on the demand side. And we're looking at the data and seeing if that's happening and how it's happening and how we can drive it more. So your points were really, as usual, Diane, right on.
And I think
blunt too, as usual.
And I think it was mentioned in one of Abby's slides, though, but just about the fact that the data that's being tracked creates a misalignment of incentives about what kind of work should be done for those targeted populations. Also, Bob.
Oh, thanks. Good morning. Thanks so much for the reports, Abby and Tim. Two quick questions. One is, can we get a copy of one of the PowerPoints because it's pretty confusing just watching it, and there's just a lot on there, right? And second of all, Abby, could you just make some comments about the budgets around nursing and nursing workforce? I didn't hear that included. I've been asked a lot by our employers. They're interested in some new nursing programs, and I didn't hear the report on the money for nursing workforce.
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that, Bob, because I was focusing more on the dollars from the healthcare workforce initiative that are flowing through the labor side rather than the health and human services side, which is really where the majority of the dollars are. And I'm pretty sure that when all the budget negotiations were done, that the nursing landed in at around 200 million. And there's a big chunk of that, the exact amount to be determined. All of this is going through HCI, that used to be OSHPD. And, there will be a component of the dollars that go into expanding Song Brown and scholarships and loans. And there will be a component that, we've been involved in starting to shape, the work is just getting going, of creating a nursing education and training pipeline expansion and innovation fund. Just really, we've done so many interviews over the last 6 or 8 months to understand where the blockages are in the nursing pipeline, education pipeline, and wanting to support some innovations that would open up the pipeline. Because we could do all the scholarships and loans in the world, but if people can't get into programs, if there aren't enough faculty, as you know so well, if there aren't enough clinical placements, if the community colleges are at a disadvantage in securing some of those placements, I'm hoping that this fund will include increasing the transition to practice nurse residency programs. So those dollars are with HCI. Part of what's exciting about this whole initiative is, pushing our way into working with HHS on kind of shaping workforce programs.
Oh, thank you. So I guess just a quick, more specific question.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple of health employers are actually interested in doing some apprenticeship for specialty nursing.
That's great.
Would that be under the HCI funding, or would that be under the apprenticeship funding, or both?
I think it could be both. I think that let's put our heads together on that.
Okay.
Can we have an offline conversation? Because I'd love to see more apprenticeship. Everybody wants to see more apprenticeship in healthcare, and those transition to practice programs could really become apprenticeship programs.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and I don't know who the employers are you're talking about. We've had some very, very helpful conversations with the Kaiser workforce leadership.
Yeah, we have Kaiser, and there's 1 or 2 others now that are interested in the same program. They've never been interested before, so this is really new for us.
Workforce demand can really push innovation. Can we follow up offline, Bob?
Sure, no problem.
Okay. Have any public comments come in?
Clemente or Jeff, public comment at this point?
No public comments at this time.
Thanks, Clemente.
Thank you. We're gonna
And
now.
then I mute you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So we're gonna now proceed to our initiative updates, and so we have several critical initiatives at the board, and we're gonna do a quick round of brief updates. But before we get into that, I wanna announce that regrettably, our incomparable Aida Cardenas is no longer working as our high road field general. And we wish her the absolute best with her future plans. And stepping in is going to be the amazing Sandra Hamamet. And so you'll be hearing from her in a moment as well. But we'll start with our policy, legislation, and research team with Pradeep.
Pradeep, you might be on mute.
Okay,
there you go.
I apologize. I looked at the agenda and I was third on it, so I didn't realize that I was up. So I will. So let me just get my notes here.
I'd like to keep you on your toes, Pradeep.
On the policy, research, and legislation team, in terms of, let me just start with some personnel changes. We have replaced also the incomparable Marissa Clark and Ashley Anglesey is going to take over that position starting next week. And we've hired a policy analyst that in addition to work, because there's a lot more policy work and as well on the WIOA side and legislative work that's coming up. And now we have to backfill with Ashley's position as well. With that, let me start with the statewide state agency partnerships. The CWDB submitted a 10 million grant proposal request to the United States Department of Labor and the United States Department of Justice, Bureau of Prisons. It seeks to provide federally incarcerated and justice-involved individuals with job training skills and supportive services to improve their employment outcomes and reduce recidivism. On the high road climate side, there's a lot of work going on. Abby already mentioned the work that Tim and Shreyas are doing. So there is the CWDB has developed language for the California Transport Commission to set responsible contractor standards and promote worker skill certification in its trade corridor enhancement program. There is provided feedback and recommendations to the Northeast states on coordinated air use management that addressed economic equity for workers. The CWDB helped draft language and consulted with labor unions on California's joint multi-agency comment letter to the Federal Department of Interior to improve the terms of lease for lease sale for offshore wind development to occur later in 2022. The Labor Secretary reviewed and approved CW draft text. We are working on the EV infrastructure program as well, and which will provide billions of dollars of federal dollars to build electrical vehicle charging stations along federal highway corridors across the state. It was a drafted language for a multi-agency comment letter for the Federal Department of Transportation to support the recommended improvements. There's a lot of work going on the regional coordination side with the local workforce boards and the regional planning units. We just released, and I think Joel will talk more about that, the RERP awards, the Regional Equity and Recovery Partnership grants, and that grant is now being central to a lot of infrastructure work that we're thinking about as we move forward. Moving on to research policy, Abby mentioned the AJCC evaluation report. We are finalizing that, and we're trying to make that accessible, and it should be shortly on our website within the next couple of weeks. We have completed the RPI Regional Planning Initiative 3.0 evaluation, and we will have that on the website probably by the end of this month. So also we've completed the Breaking Barriers evaluation report, and that's also in the process of being made accessible and moving that forward to our website. The Cal Skills report, both the CPL impact study as well as the workforce dashboard metric report is almost complete. The workforce dashboard metrics report is available on our website, and that's available for on the website. We're still working on trying to get through last minute approvals for the CPL impact study. We finalized a contract with the UCLA Labor Center on the third-party evaluation for high road training programs and high road construction careers. UCLA has the contract copy and are currently reviewing that. We are the data team along with the research team is working on developing a data list that we will be using for our state programs within the Salesforce effort that I think Joel will talk more about later. The one thing that is new for the research team is we are strong as we are moving to a second round of third party evaluations. The team is working on concept papers or white papers on the job quality, equity, and climate resilience. We made significant progress in job quality, and we are working with the UC Berkeley Labor Center and working with them to have discussions about and coming up with a standardized approach to job quality. The policy, on the policy side, the legislature just got back, and we will then be looking at as the legislature moves towards the end of their legislative year, we will be having bills to review through the process. The U.S. Department of Labor came for or did a governance visit last week, and we'll have an exit interview next week. But this was my first time, and I would have to say that I think it went quite smoothly and successfully.
Because we run a clean operation up here in Sacramento with EDD.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Well, and one last thing is that I'll just end up by saying we, on our data and administration and management side, we're working on trying to move CalSkills and all our data administration and management to the 21st century. We're working on partnership agreements with our state agency partners. We are working with the California Department of Technology to move all of that to the cloud, and we are working on getting the contract both with CPL and our data sharing agreement contracts with our partners in place. And by the next time we meet in 3 months, we will have we'll be close to moving into phase 2 for CalSkills. That's all I have, Tim.
Thank you, Pradeep. That's a great update. John Brower. John.
Thanks, Angelo. Is there an opportunity at some point at the board to have either a presentation and discussion around that job quality piece when that comes out? But to be honest with you, I think from some of us in labor, even the preliminary stuff that was done by the Future of Work and the Aspen Institute doesn't go far enough, I think, in articulating some of the elements of job quality that we think are important. And so I would hope just when that work is done, if there was an opportunity for that to be presented and for the board to at least have a brief discussion on it at some point.
Yeah, thanks, John, for bringing that up. I actually talked to Secretary Pelugii about putting together a group of folks who could advise on that. So we're doing the work, as Pradeep said, in our research shop. Phyllis Jeffries is fantastic in pulling some good material together, but putting together a group of board members and maybe some others who could help advise on that would be great. And building on Abby Snade's terrific work at the Future Work Commission, I think, is the right way to think about this. So we'll come back around about creating a group, and if anybody actually on this executive committee would like to dig in on job quality, let me know.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, John, for that comment. And you guys, anybody interested, could communicate with Tim offline if you want to serve in that capacity. Our next update is from Joelle, Program Implementation Team.
Thank you. Just quick updates. All of the 21-22 funds that the CWDB received are out. So that means they're either available, they're in contract, or somewhere in between. And by available, I'm talking about the two HRTP and HRCC resilient workforce funds. Those are open and rolling funds that we receive grant proposals and then invite to apply. So that's ongoing. And that also means that the 22-23 funding for those that Abby talked about and Tim talked about will go right into those funds and are immediately available to apply for. The grant proposals that we received in April, we have a group that were invited to apply, and those are the applications that are due in the next week or so. And then we had another group apply in July, and those are going to be invited to apply in the next week or so. The 22-23 WIOA dollars, Accelerator and RPI, both are going to be released before fall. We want to get those out right away, and we want to align the grant term of this round of RPI with the grant term of the RERP dollars. And then prison to employment for the 21-22 dollars, those applications came in Monday, and so those are currently in review. As Pradeep mentioned, we just awarded the RERPs, and the breaking barriers dollars, those applications are due the first week of September. And then just an update on Salesforce. We continue, like all of our new solicitations are on the Salesforce platform, and will continue to be on the Salesforce platform. And we are working on enhancements as we go, as we see like there's it wasn't perfect on the first go. So we're making all those enhancements as we go along and develop new applications. And then on the grant management side, we have completed and put into production fund management, invoicing, and modification requests. So all those modules are built. And we're moving into discovery and development for reporting and data capture. And then right after that, we're going to be working on different dashboards that are going to be available to illustrate what's going on with all of the programs at any time in real time, which is really exciting. And then I'm not sure if this update was in the last meeting, but we did establish a solicitations and contracting unit, which is really nice because now there's another group of folks that are working on solicitations and taking that workload off of program implementation. So we can really concentrate on program implementation, and Mike Gracetta is doing a great job with that unit. They're still learning and getting going, but they're doing a great job with the RFAs and developing in Salesforce. And the contracting team is also just starting to get going. We still have to hire managers in that unit, but so far so good. And I can take any questions if there are any.
Thank you for that update, Joelle. We'll now go to our High Road field team, and thank you again, Sandra, for stepping in. Are you okay? Perfect. Thank you, Sandra.
Morning, everyone. And thank you for acknowledging that we are in a transition for the field team. We are missing Aida. The field team has really stepped up, and I really want to acknowledge each and every one of them for keeping all the plates spinning during this transition period. It really is a testament to the foundation that was really put in place for our team. And I really want to thank our leadership, past and present, for really building that foundation. And it's really going to carry us into this next phase. So I'm really happy to be playing this temporary interim role while the recruitment process is underway, and happy to share some updates with you this morning too. Okay, so I'll jump right in and I'll keep them brief. We have a lot of photos, and maybe at another time we'll share photos of some of the happenings over the last few months, but I'll just kind of keep it more brief sound bites for today. So over the last few months, the field team has continued to participate in more in-person visits. They're very happy to be out in person and attending meetings, visiting sites to talk to partners, also attending HRTP, HRCC graduations, open house events, project launches. We've met with community groups and various stakeholders. Again, we're really glad to be getting out in person. And what's interesting is it's generating even more work. Being in contact with folks is really gives us a chance to talk about High Road and really dig into the overall goals of this initiative and the broader field of practice around High Road. We look forward to planning more in-person events in the months ahead. And the team continues also to work with current project partners as well as groups and organizations who are interested in learning about the new funding opportunities through the High Road Resilient Workforce Fund. So I'll try not to repeat some of what Joelle said. But for us, it's a lot of work on the front end around really talking to potential grantees to dig in and provide some type of technical assistance around the essential elements of High Road. So it's been a really fruitful process and has resulted in a kind of grant proposal process that really where folks are getting and understanding what High Road entails, and those components are coming through in the grant proposals we're receiving. And that's because of that, a lot of that front end work that we've built into this process. So for HRTP, we are very much on track. I think this was said a couple of different times, but we're very much on track to more than double our project portfolio by or before the end of this year. I'm banking on before the end of this year at this point. So lots of the workload continues to grow, and it's great. And we're all keeping things balanced right now and just recognizing that more work is ahead of us. We're also working in coordination with our statewide partnerships team to really get the word out about High Road across state agencies. So it was great, just kind of doubling back to one of Abby's slides. We are really focusing on a lot of that statewide partnership work, and we've been building towards that. And so it's great that ongoing statewide partnership work, that the statewide partnerships team is really working in conjunction with some of the High Road field team conversations. And we're really trying to collaborate within our organization to create that streamlined messaging and really get the word out with all state agency partners. So really helps to align that support system and broaden the field of practice within state government around High Road. So that's been an ongoing effort. Later this month, the High Road Training Fund, will launch. Actually, I say later this month, I think within the next few weeks. The High Road Training Fund is a partnership with Jobs for the Future, JFF. And the training fund will augment public funding from the state with money from private sources to accelerate the impact of High Road partnerships. The first round of funding for the first cohort will focus on opportunity youth. So more information about that is on the horizon. And then adding to the High Road peer learning community, UC Berkeley Labor Center launched a learning lab in July for High Road practitioners, and the field team has been participating in those learning lab modules. And it's just, each one seems, there's been 2 so far, each one they're getting rave reviews. Just the community really building out that kind of strengthening and understanding, and the information sharing across partnerships has been beneficial. It's just really taking it to that next level of really deepening the contacts within the community. So that's been great, and congratulations to everyone involved in turning that idea into a reality. A lot of hard work went into planning and putting it together, and so very, very grateful for the folks that have worked on that and really brought it to fruition. I mentioned that we will be more than doubling our HRTP portfolio. And with that, I'm very happy to announce we're also adding staff capacity. So we've added a partnership alignment manager is the actual title. We welcomed Roy Matthews to the team. He'll be focusing on more of that systems alignment with the education and workforce system, focusing on community colleges. And really, it's less of it's part of the field team, but more deepening our benches to support the work that the field specialists are doing. So we're really excited to be building out that unit and really growing our team. We're also, we'll be onboarding 2 additional field specialists, which I am incredibly excited about. The team is very excited about. So we'll be able to share their names in the near future, but we're looking forward to getting them on board later this month. I know I've missed other things, but I think that's probably a good 30,000 foot view of what things look like right now. So thanks. Happy to join you this morning, and I'll turn it back over to Dr. Farouk.
Thanks, Sandra. I just wanted to add a couple of things. One is, I want to thank Abby for her great work on the High Road Training Fund, her guidance and her leadership in helping to pull that together with Irvine Foundation and others, and also Lumina, which is coming into the High Road Training Fund, but also separately investing in our high road construction careers. So we're getting that private philanthropic investment aligned with high road, and hopefully that just continues to grow. And I also want to thank Carol at the UC Berkeley Labor Center for their guidance and leadership and vision around the Learning Lab, which we intend to blow up into a full-blown high road training institute or something of that, some name like that. But the concept is we're never going to have enough people on the ground doing the work that needs to get done unless we mobilize and deputize folks around the state who are in organized labor, workforce development practitioners, economic development agencies. That is, I think, really going to be, as our chair says, the game changer when we get that going. So it's a big part of the strategy to build this institute at the Labor Center at Berkeley.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Tim. Any comments or questions for them? Okay. Have any public comments come in?
No public comments.
Thank you.
No comments on YouTube.
Perfect. Thank you. So we'll now shift to other business. So our next full board meeting is going to be August 31st at, Carol. Carol, are you trying to ask a question or comment?
Yeah, I just thought of a real quick question. On the new, you called it green or climate HRTPs, do you have to run through that whole set of criteria and evaluation that the ARB put on the first set? Is it that stringent or is it more flexible?
It's not tied to the Air Resources Board. It's not greenhouse gas funds.
Okay, great.
Thank you for that, asking for that clarification, Carol. So our next meeting of the full board is August 31st at 10 a.m. And we're actually going to be holding it in Southern California at the IBEW NECA Electrical Training Institute. That's a net zero facility, I believe, in the city of Commerce in LA County, and we'll have workforce leadership from there locally as well. And so we'll be getting more information out to you soon. So stay tuned for that. We're also planning a round of regional member-to-member conversations for the fall. So the intention is for our state and local workforce board members and other stakeholders on regional coordination, industry sector work, high road. So a number of our board members have been, all of you really have been effective ambassadors for our vision, mission, and work. All of you on our executive committee especially have been really great in terms of building actual program. And just as an aside, that's also why we don't involve the board in program and funding decisions, just as an FYI. But we need more reach and capacity in the field, and we want to enlist more of our board members in this type of leadership. So thinking creatively and mobilizing industry-based partnerships and coalitions on these high road principles. And I also just think it's an opportunity for us as state leaders to stay on the pulse and be hearing from different regions and the wide range of needs that they have throughout California. We will kick off this tour at the California Workforce Association's Meeting of the Minds Conference in Monterey, which is the week of Labor Day. It starts the day after Labor Day. And we can support up to 6 board members to attend. And we want to extend this gesture initially to our executive committee. So feel free, you can again contact Tim and any of us offline, unless there's something you want to share now. So Carol, I'm assuming that you're not requesting to speak from the prior. Jamil, are you trying to?
No, I was just gonna tell Tim that I'd like to go to Monterey.
Okay,
Cool. Yeah, we should say a lot of our state board members serve on local workforce boards, a lot of them. And we're going to encourage those members to go to their local boards because the intention of M3, the Meeting of the Minds in Monterey, has always been to bring local board members together for policy discussions, high-level policy discussions. So we want our board members that serve on local boards to have their local boards also send them to Monterey. But if
Tim, I agree. So that's fine. So forget what I said. I'll just get my local board. And you're right. We need to get more people there. So I'll go through my local board. Thank you.
Oh, that's great. Then we can use those 6 for more folks who are on local boards who can't get their local boards to send. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Yes.
thank you, Jamil. Any other comments or questions before we close the meeting? So Clemente, Jeff, did any last public comments come through?
No public comments.
Okay, so I can entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Jamil, who's any second? Anyone want to end the meeting? Nancy?
I'll second.
Oh, I thought you wanted to say.
My 2 comments for the meeting. I'm second both to start and end the meeting.
Right on. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Jeff, for confirming that. And so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No abstentions or nays? Okay, all right, our meeting is adjourned 45 minutes early, 11:15. So take care, everyone. We'll see you hopefully
Thank you.
August 31st. Take care.